All right, phenomenal morning, everybody. How you doing? This is Breakfast with the Brand. I am your host, Junior Frederick. If you're just coming in, I want you to do two things. Number one, put some flames in the chat. And number two, let us know where you're listening in from. Today, we have a phenomenal show for you. And if you were here yesterday, excuse me, last week, then you know exactly how powerful it was. The show that we had last week featuring Mr. Cello, it caused a lot of introspection. It also brought about a lot of reflection. If you're just coming in, I want to ask you a question. I want you to put it in the chat. What is the number one thing that you took away from that show? What is the number one thing that you took away from that show? For me, the number one thing that I took away was each one reach one. You know, just listening to Mr. Cello tell his story and, you know, really just break down the reality that most people face and addressing some of those concerns, it caused me to think. Now, as most of you know, I'm just a young man from the islands who overcame the odds to do something great. So, speaking about the reality of things in the US, the reality of things around the world, it really opened my mind. It really gave me different perspective and allowed me to see things in a much broader light. And for me, that was super powerful. I see we have Jasmine. So Jasmine, phenomenal morning to you. Shout out to Florida. I'm about to bring Shaan on in a bit, but before I do so, I want you to put it in the chat. What is the number one thing that you took away from last week's show? What is the number one thing? All right. So Shaan, whenever you're ready, let's come out. Let's get the ball rolling here. Let's get started. I'm so looking forward to today. Phenomenal evening, Ty. All right. How you doing, sir?
I am absolutely phenomenal, no complaints whatsoever, and I am super pumped up and excited as well. You know, those of you who might have just started following us or maybe caught us just yesterday on one thing, you might not know the social justice fabric that this brand was born from, right? But the reason why, as an entrepreneur and as a business owner, you're going to want to create, good morning, good morning, good morning. The reason why you're going to want to just not allow anything to detract you is because if you're consistent and persistent, you will be able to build a platform. And when you build that platform, you'll be able to speak to higher causes than your immediate. I always tell the entrepreneurs that I work with, the reason why you're here is not why you think you're here. Everybody, you know, comes first to get a little bit of coinage, right? Everybody wants a couple more coins in their purse when they begin. They want to make a little bit more money, and that's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. But after the coinage, after you're successful and you make a couple of dollars, the dollars aren't going to keep you here and keep you grinding and keep you focused. What's going to keep you focused is purpose. What's going to keep you focused is your mission and your vision. So I want you to think, and I want you to also begin with the end in mind. From the very beginning, this was my vision, to be able to create a platform for people who thought outside of the box and worked outside of the lines of convention in order to bring about change. and social justice, if you will. So yeah, this is the dream come true for me, Junior. Thank you for asking that.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir, definitely. But like, like I said, I'm from the islands, so
I
just
know.
listening to the two of you go back and forth, just listening to the two of you go back and forth last week, it really opened my mind. It really broadened my perspective. I'll put it that way. Like,
Uh,
okay, so this is what funny thing, Shan, it's it's not the same thing here, but it's similar. I know a
I'm
lot of
sure.
people, many, particularly a lot of women, a lot of our ladies, they were in the chat, talking about different experiences that they had. I know a lot
Yes,
of people personally, ladies in my family who have gone through the same things. We just never look at it that way. The way that Mr. Cello has so expertly and so eloquently given it to us, right? So
yes,
I'm
sir.
super excited. I have my writing instruments here, ready to take
Hmm.
notes. Guys, we're going to a break in 2 minutes, right? But before we do that, I want to welcome everybody coming in. So I see we have Deborah, we have Ty, we have some more people on Facebook, LinkedIn. So phenomenal morning to you. Phenomenal morning to you.
I
I want
just
you to put it in the chat.
I just had a thought.
Um,
I just had a thought. It's not geographic, it's genealogical. It's not
exactly.
geographic. What we're talking about is not geographic, it's genealogical. So anywhere that there are black and brown people, children, you're going to see this kind of thing play out. Some places are harsher than others, but it still exists. And that's what we're here to get to the bottom of today.
Yes, sir. So, guys, before we go to the break, I want you to put it in the chat. What was the number one thing that you took away from from last week's session? I see Sean with the Batman cup there.
Yes, sir.
Very nice, very nice. So, what was the number one thing? Let's put that in the chat. So, Sean, let's go to a quick break, and when we come back, we're gonna be welcoming Mr. Cello.
Let's grow.
Let's go.
All right. All right. So listen, guys, you're in for a treat. I hope you're ready. We left last week talking about women's hair and young girls' hair and how they were ostracized in schools, told to change it. We talked about how in business, there are now laws and defense practices. There's DEI, right? Diversity, equity, and inclusion, welcoming divergent ideas, appearances, and presentations, right, of culture within organizations. However, within the mini organization, within the school system, there's no such thing. And if anything, we actually talked about a system that prepared children for prison or less than positive outcomes, whereas schools are meant to be preparing people for phenomenal outcomes and phenomenal livelihoods. And before we actually went live, myself and Mr. Cello was in the back talking about different experiences that I've had geographically. So go ahead, Mr. B, bring Mr. Cello out and let's get into the meat of this matter. Thank you, sir. Mr. Cello, welcome back, brother. Hey, guys, give Mr. Cello a round of applause, right? Virtual fist bumps, and let him know that you really, really appreciate it. Put some flames in the chat for the conversation that you heard last week. There's a lot more needed to be done on this topic, but it really doesn't exist. So you see the influencers, right? You see the social media influencers, and you see the people who are moving the needle in different spaces like business, but the unsung heroes, the real veterans, the people who are on the front line fighting causes, social causes for social justice, many times are not afforded the platform. So I felt compelled and impelled to go ahead and bring you out here, brother, because to me, this is the fight that needs to be fought. So how are you doing this morning, brother? Welcome to Breakfast with the Brand once again.
I'm great and really glad to be here again for a second time to really put the issue out there. And I'm glad you started off with the DEI component of it, because no matter what school I've been to all across the country, everyone has a DEI statement. Everyone has some type of mission statement that has DEI in it. But unless it's the air that you breathe, unless it's part of the culture, DEI statements and mission statements don't solve problems.
Ooh. So what does solve problems, sir? Come on. I think you're gonna bring the fire from the beginning. Let's go. So DEI statements and placards don't solve problems. What does?
People solve problems. One of my favorite things to tell educators: see a problem, create a solution. We don't have time to complain about them, and just really one to really hit on. We have the United States Supreme Court confirmation hearings, and we've seen how Dr. Brown Jackson has been attacked by congressmen. Now imagine that happens every day in the school system, where administrators, law enforcement question our kids in the exact same manner. And our kids are vulnerable to those manipulative interview tactics. And it happens every day. We see it, and she's a lawyer and she's had years of experience, and you can see her struggle, you can see her pain. She's there crying at one point because of it. Now imagine that 6-year-old kid in the principal's office getting questioned the exact same way.
Wow. Wow. Yeah. So the same kind of grilling you're saying takes place on, and it's hard for me to refer to it this way, but I have a specific bent and a leniency, like my experience lends towards specific demographics, languages, and situations. So I'm going to go ahead and say it the way it came to my mind. So you're saying children are being grilled the same way on the inside.
Absolutely. And especially one of the biggest factors in the school to prison pipeline is law enforcement in the building. And a lot of people don't know this, but law enforcement can question your kid before notifying a parent. They can actually question your kid before notifying a parent. And when a principal or administrator brings a child into the room and law enforcement is present, there's no longer any protection. There's no protection. Those conversations aren't protected. And children are just vulnerable to adults, whether they see them as we can get them to say things that they may not mean. They may say things that aren't exactly in context. And when you realize that 90% of the children being questioned waive their Miranda rights immediately. And now you have a child without the presence of a parent, without the presence of an attorney talking. And it happens every day. And we know children can make things up. We know children can be manipulated into saying things that may not necessarily be true or led in a direction that an adult wants them to go. And part of my work is empowering parents and empowering children to be able to say, you know what, I know what my rights are. And part of it is, I'm not talking until provide me an attorney or you call my parent.
Wow. I can hear it in your voice, right? I can hear it in your voice. And as you're saying things, pictures and images are coming up in my mind as well as experiences. And I can remember in the 6th grade, they had this little black book. Now, I'm just a kid from Harlem who grew up in the late 80s, early 90s. You don't have to be a historian to know what that era was like. We say, I don't know if it was the war on crack or the war on blacks. That's for each individual listener to make that decision, right? But I can remember this book being passed around. I was like 13, and it was called The Little Black Book. What to do if you're stopped by police. And it was like a survival manual for black and brown children growing up in the ghetto. Take your hands out of your pockets. Don't make any sudden movements. Stand still. Don't run. Don't reach for your phone. Don't reach, well, it was beepers at that time. Don't reach for your beepers. It was almost like don't travel alone. It was almost like a buddy system, like kind of like a war scene, like Vietnam, like don't travel alone, don't be alone, don't be out at night. And one of the instructions was always to have respect for authority. Now, respect for authority kind of means to do what you're told, especially if the person that's instructing you has two things that are associated with authority: if they're an adult, and number two, if they have a uniform. Children and adults are taught, cultivated, conditioned to treat that with respect and almost fall under the supposed leadership that comes with the uniform, right? So you're saying now that there needs to be a little black book protocol walking into the school?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I'm glad you brought up that point. It's an excellent point, because the disconnect is when law enforcement sees you not talking as disrespect. And the most respectful thing you can do is stay silent. Is that if you feel like you're in your emotions, is to not talk. You answer the questions that you're legally obligated to answer, but there aren't any, really. Even when you're pulled over, you don't have to tell a police officer where you're going. You don't have to tell them where you've been. You have to provide them your driver's license and registration, because that's a privilege that whatever state you're in gives you. And when you sign that form to get your driver's license, you actually waive that right. You have to give them that. But conversations, they don't have to happen. Once you're pulled over, you don't have to say anything. But when law enforcement sees that as disrespect, and we usually say things because we want to get out of a ticket, but we're not obligated to tell police officers what we're doing, where we're going. We're not obligated to do that. And when you don't do that, they see that as disrespect. And that's what happens in the school system, is where if there's law enforcement or an authority figure present, they're in their feelings because the child won't talk. And part of what I do is, this is a cultural thing. My experience with police officers is much different. There was no police officer that came to my house other than if something happened. My neighbor wasn't a police officer. I didn't know personally police officers. So my experience is different when I have a conversation with a police officer. And a lot of police officers don't understand that. And a lot of police officers in school aren't trained to deal with children.
Mm.
They're just there, and they treat children sometimes in a culturally biased way with their own unconscious biases towards children that don't look like them.
Okay. I see that. I can understand. We mature fast. Like, I can remember my grandfather sending me back into the bathroom like 5 times when I was about 13, maybe 12, and telling me to wash my face. I kept coming out. He kept telling me, go back and wash your face. Go back and wash your face. And then he said, do you believe this boy's got a mustache? Because, I had a little bit of hair on my upper lip, right? And we grow fast. We got 16-year-olds that are almost like they're basketball players, right? We mature fast. So you're saying that they are looking at children as adults and they're not adequately trained to question or interact with children. So they're kind of interacting with them the way they do in the street, kind of like an adversarial kind of.
It's actually called adultification, where they're black and brown children are viewed older. So they're supposed to be more responsible. They're supposed to be more adultified, and they treat them as if they're adults, but they're still only children.
Adultification. Listen, if you guys are learning something, put it in the chat, guys. If you're learning something, put it in the chat. I want you to understand that we talk about business a lot, and everybody knows me for speaking, coaching, executive coaching, business development, branding development. But the reality is that if you can't make it to this stage in your life, the chances of you owning a business are pretty slim and slight, right? So we're being faced with some stuff in life as young people growing up, and I've experienced it firsthand, secondhand, and thirdhand, right? As a child, as an adult, and as a father, right? So it's very important that we understand that this is the business that a lot of people don't want to talk about. They just want to keep making money and sweeping it under the rug and seeing things happen and not saying nothing to it. And, good, like quiet money, like, shh, just keep the money coming. And they don't want to really like add their 2 cents or create a platform for those who are working in other sectors that have a space to speak, right? So it was imperative to me to be the difference that I want to see and provide the platform fearlessly and peerlessly to have another perspective and light shown upon the situation. Because realistically, we are all, either anyone listening is once used to be a child, adult, soon, hopefully, if we make it, and then fathers and mothers of children in this situation, right? And I'm not one to point fingers and say who's what, where, when, why. No, that's not my thing. My thing is to provide the platform and open the conversation, open the channel for dialogue. So let me just make an observation. One of my observations is that you have a different background this morning, sir. You have a different background this morning. So
yes.
Yeah. Where are you located, brother? What's the nature of business today?
Yeah, I'm on the road. I'm talking to high school kids. I'm in Baltimore, Maryland, and a lot of times teachers, educators believe that if you're from an underserved community, that you automatically get this funding for college, that you know what to do to how to get to college. And a lot of times, students of color, especially, really don't know how to open that door. So I'm here to show them how to open that door, to show them how to get money for college. Last year alone, $2.7 billion of college funding wasn't used. It's out there, but young people, especially young people who are trying to be first generation college students, don't know how to open that door. So I'm here to open that door and get some of that $2.7 billion that's out there.
Good work. Good work. Good work. So you're on the road. Tell me about so you're an educator, right? You're an educator. You are formally stationed within class, correct? Like you're teaching regularly, 9 to 5, Monday to Friday. Is that what you're doing?
I'm actually moved on from educator. I'm a county coordinator for what's called the Next Generation Scholar Program. It's a grant funded program in Maryland, where providing college access to that underserved population and increasing the outcomes of high school graduation and college admissions and college graduation.
Very good. Are you stationed within a central location?
Yes, I'm in Allegheny County, Maryland,
Okay.
my central location, but I serve the schools throughout the state of Maryland.
Okay, very good. Very good. Outside of that, you travel a lot. You speak a lot. I constantly see you in different backgrounds. Tell me about that. Tell me about what else you do, how your entrepreneurial mind allows you to fight the good fight and what that looks like. What does that look like? Because I want my entrepreneurs and my business owners to understand that they're not just stuck in business, that they can actually think creatively and innovatively of ways to be of assistance to their cause of choice, if you will. So go ahead, tell us how you articulate that.
It all started when I left the prison system, and I was just really volunteering.
Hold on, I'm sorry. We have to clarify that. When you say something like that, we have to clarify that. So please go back a little bit. How did you leave the prison system?
I retired after 27 years.
Okay. So you weren't incarcerated. You were on the other side of it.
Yeah, sometimes people see me and get confused. I'm glad you clarified that.
Yeah, mandatory. Go ahead before somebody gets the wrong impression.
And I just started out volunteering with, the Say No to Drugs campaign, going to schools, because I did a lot of that in the prison system with the men I served that had substance abuse issues. So I started out doing that, and I just started thinking, this isn't my niche. Even though I have experience at it, this really isn't my niche. My experience, my life experiences don't really fit in the substance abuse part. And I began actually substitute teaching. I went back to school to get my master's degree in education and leadership. And I began substitute teaching. And when it seemed seamless from going from a prison to a school, that it bothered me. And the first assignment I got was at an alternative school. And I said, why would they put a brand new teacher in an alternative school? And for me, that why question is important for all of us, is that whenever you're in a situation, is always ask the question, why is something happening? And when I asked that question, and it was a hard question to ask, because when you think about it, I thought they wanted me because I'm outstanding at what I do. They saw what I did as a sub. But the real part of it was, which was a hard question for me to answer, and the answer was, you're Black, you worked in the prison system, and we want you to come in here and straighten these Black kids up. And that was the conflict. And I'm astray a little bit because I think this is important. Because
no, it is. And I want you to. So go right ahead, sir. Thank you very much for that.
We don't have enough Black men in education. There's only 2% of teachers across the United States that are Black men. And the Black men that are in education are often positioned to be the enforcers. They're often positioned to be the disciplinarian. And we're not respected as the educators who mold young people. And I felt that, and it hurt. And to all Black men that are in the education field, I have your back, and we need to be empowered, supported, and valued for our contributions for the roles that we play as leaders in the schools. And to any Black man who has a thought of being an educator, please pursue that path, because you're much needed in this fight. Students need a person that looks like them. And when I was in there, and they expected that disciplinarian, they expected that authority. He's from the prison system, you better listen to what he says, and this whole scared straight thing. And they didn't get that. They got somebody who sat down with the kids. They got somebody who did fist bumps with the kids. They got somebody who gave hugs to the kids. They had somebody that actually knew what the kids were going through, rather than somebody that's there to tell them to take their hats off, to pull their pants up, to actually have real conversations and actually set Romeo and Juliet aside, talk about Rome and Julie.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Okay. Now, tell me a little bit about the speaking and the working and the training. How have you kind of converted this social justice cause into compensation? How have you created a business for yourself out of your mission, vision, and purpose?
Well,
As well as, I have to add this to morals, values, and principles.
you know, people pay to solve problems. People will pay to solve problems is the first thing. And I knew there was a problem in the education system that I could solve because I was seeing it.
Could you say that one more time, please?
People pay to solve problems. And I saw a problem. And one of my mantras is see a problem, create a solution. And the further part of it is see a problem, create a solution, get compensated for it.
Mm, good.
I saw the problem and I said, I do have a solution because I've seen the other end. So I tied my experience in the prison system and said to the educators and board of education places that this is what you're actually doing. These are the statistics. I provided proof. Masters have proof. And I showed them their proof that they were failing, that it's not the children that are failing. It's not the teachers that, it's the system that's failing. And this is how we're going to fix the system. So I started speaking, talking to youth, and just really about making better choices, my experiences, and getting their thoughts. But then I said, there's the gap in the training of the educators. There are too many educators that are struggling with students that don't look like them. And
so let me just highlight something. So you're saying that in doing the work, in serving the need, you found a deeper need.
yes, yes,
All right, entrepreneurs, pay attention. Business people, pay attention. So you said that so people pay for a problem to be solved. As an entrepreneur and as a business leader, as a thinker, you came with the data to evidence and prove the problem. You just didn't say you guys are doing this messed up. You guys are doing this wrong. And you came with the statistics and the analytics, which means you did research.
exactly.
And you presented the data, but you didn't present the problem without having a solution at the same time.
Exactly. And one of my missteps in the beginning was I was treating every school the same way, but you don't treat every person the same way. Every school had an individual dynamic that they were struggling with. So I had to figure out what is the pain point for this school? What is the pain point for this school? I remember my first professional development, which was geared toward Black and brown educators. I went to an all white audience, and you wouldn't believe that the hate mail I got after that. But I didn't gear my presentation toward them. I geared it toward Black and brown educators, which I started with as a support, and it just didn't go well. And I learned from that. And when you're when you're trying to become an entrepreneur, embrace those mistakes. Now I have more specialized training speeches toward what your pain point is in education. You have that problem. I can solve your problem. I just need from you what your pain points are. Like one in particular is that at a school I'm going to speak to in a couple months is that the administrators feel like their non-Black teachers aren't embracing their Black and brown students like they do their white students. And they noticed that the white students were getting called our students, while the Black and brown students didn't have that same type of feeling like they're our students. And again, being a Black educator in a predominantly white woman field, that's you sort of become the sole one counseling, disciplining, and supporting. And my solution to their problems is I can help you support all teachers to support all children. See a problem, create a solution.
Good. See a problem, create a solution. I love it. We're going to have to pay some bills right now. If you guys are enjoying this and you're learning some things, put what you're learning in the chat. Put something that your takeaway is so far in the chat, and we'll be back in 2. Go right ahead, Mr. B. I know it's bill time. You got to pay some bills. All right, all right. So we've got some conversations taking place in the chat. We've got some takeaways in the chat. We've got Deb, Jasmine, Velma is giving a lot of feedback. Thank you for that. Intuitive ties, see a problem, create a solution, right? It's so imperative that we address this topic in today's climate. with everything going meta and becoming different and changing, the evolution or the de-evolution, depending on what side of the table you're sitting at, right, is consistent and constant. And as entrepreneurs, as business owners and aspiring business owners, influencers, coaches, speakers, consultants, and all of the like, a lot of times it's hard to keep your fingers on the pulse of what's really going on in the undercurrents, like what's taking place. And this is why sometimes when we take our head out of, the ostrich puts their head in the dirt. So when you take your head out of the dirt and you look around and you see different things that's going on, it's like, wow, I never knew that existed. Or are they really still doing that? It's very important that you keep your fingers to the pulse of what's going on around you, because whether you like it or not, these children and the way they're being cultivated and the way they're being groomed, conditioned, so to say, will have a massive effect on our business cycle, right? And especially when it takes place within our homes. Especially when it takes place within our homes, we have to remove the silos and begin sitting back down at the dinner table and having conversations. And I know in this fast food, microwave, Five Guy burgery mindset, it's hard to do that. There's no time for that. And everybody's trying to crush their dreams, crush their goals, and, get business done. So I greatly appreciate the fight that you're waging, right? I really appreciate the time that you're putting out there, because I know service on this level is almost a thankless job. It's almost thankless. And sometimes it's even the opposite of thankless. It's almost condemned, right? So that the children appreciate you the same way in the substance abuse field, the person who you're helping to get off of drugs may appreciate you, but the administration and society at large kind of condemns you and blackballs you as a rebel and a renegade, right? So let me know how you, as just a man, deal with that.
The way I look at it is, Harriet Tubman, I go back in history and I look at some of the freedom fighters, and they put, a bounty on her. So until there's a bounty on me, I really don't think about it. I'm in a good spot. They can talk trash and we can debate. We can do whatever. I'm not going to get in an argument with a fool. But if you want to come with a meaningful debate, I'm with it. But until they put a bounty on my head, I'm gonna continue doing what I'm doing, because there's really nothing they can do to me until, I'm Martin Luther King, where they're trying to assassinate me. I'm not doing enough, is the way I look at it. Until they get to that level, I'm still not doing enough. I get hate mail, I get emails or things like that, and it's disappointing. But it's expected.
What does some of that hate mail consist of? What does it look like? Let us in on it. What do you mean? How do you get hate mail from trying to help children? Go ahead, talk to us about that.
But it's funny because the most recent one I've gotten is I was being brought to a school, and a parent, reviewed my website, and mind you, my presentation is about getting money for college. That was my presentation to this school. It wasn't really about the school. It was something, let's get money for college. And that parent sent me an email about bringing CRT to the classroom. And it was, wasn't no threats, but there's some nasty words and comments.
What is CRT? Enlighten us.
Critical race theory. It's a theory on how racism is evolved in the systems of America and how it affects those systems, like law enforcement, like medical. And people are against it for whatever reason. People don't want history to be known. I guess that's the resentment behind it, but it's our history. It's our American history. And the fact that I wasn't even talking about that issue and they brought it up meant that that person was just looked at me, and the prejudices and the biases come out. I was there to help their child get money from financial aid because I know if they're in that school that they don't have a whole lot of money, but yet my face, my mission, my purpose, and what I do, somehow they forgot about all that, and that's the basis of racism.
Wow. Wow. Okay. So, this is Breakfast with the Brand, right? And we work with entrepreneurs, business owners, people who are aspiring to be coaches, speakers, entrepreneurs, influencers. What is your advice for someone who has a desire to serve maybe an underserved population, but can't see the money in it or can't see where to start? And they're like, well, I don't want to suffer and I don't want to be, they want to be well compensated, right? They want to be able to make a good living, maybe leave their 9 to 5. And it's hard for them to discern whether they serve the purpose that is popular and profitable or serve the purpose that their passion speaks to. I give people the same advice that I was given. Serve what pays you first, and then you can do the charity work on the back end. Don't put yourself on what we call Strivers Row in New York or Ninth Ave out of home because you got a big heart. Get some deep pockets, and then you can afford to create change. So what is your advice, though? I'd like to hear it from someone who's on that particular side of the fight. What is your advice to someone who has a passionate heart, wants to help the world, save the world, whatever part of the world or segment of the world that may be, but still has to make money at the end of the day and pay bills like the rest of the people? What is your advice to them?
I am uniquely blessed to have my passion and my life experiences, my expertise to fall in that category, being born in the time when it's needed. Had it been the 1990s, early 1990s, I probably wouldn't fit at that time because that was a tough on crime era. I would have seemed to have been soft. There was a sense of coming together. Even 20 years ago, when 9/11 happened, there was a sense of this America coming together. And I think that's why some of this has exploded, because we turned a blind eye to it. I don't want people to get it twisted. Like I said, I'm uniquely empowered for this path.
Okay.
So my niche has always really been social justice. I'm just now really getting paid for it. I would say the same thing. Your passion will leave you broke. And my passion in the beginning was to help men get out of prison. But I wasn't broke, but I was living pretty much a lot of the 27 years paycheck to paycheck, because I was always taught to find that government job, get benefits, take 2 weeks of vacation, have kids, go to Disney World when they're young, retire at 67. And it wasn't until I was in my 40s where I really found where my gift was. And my gift just so happened to be something I can make money with. But I would totally agree that you follow where you can make money and you can make an impact with that money. I'm just in a unique position where the way I make money is the way I make my impact.
Good. Very good.
Morally impact the thing that I do. But yeah, absolutely. When you have that resource, you're able to make that impact. If you don't have that resource, it's much harder to make the impact that you want unless you're working for someone.
Very good. Very good. So be smart, right? Have a heart, but be smart. Be smart. Have a heart, but be smart. Don't put yourself out there to where you're going to be on what we call in New York strivers row, right? Mr. B, go ahead and put Mr. Cello's link in the section down there. Listen, guys, I truly hope that this has been as meaningful for you as it has for us, right? So at the bottom, you'll find Mr. Well, Leonard, do you want to go ahead and introduce your stuff? Go ahead, talk about your book, your opportunities, the different places where they can connect with you, your social handles, and what your next steps are. Go ahead and take that segment over. Go ahead.
I have 2 books available by that link, and they're also available on Amazon. The first one was called Youth Champs, a teenager's guide to striving through those rough years. And my other book I co-authored with 18 other people, men. It's called Impact of Influence, Volume 2. Those are available on the link or at Amazon. My website is intheschooltoprisonpipeline.com. If you would have a problem in your education field or at your school, you can book me to come in and see a problem. We create solutions, and you tell me your pain points, and I'll help you solve that problem. The future now, I'm doing an educators workshop on Paris Island with the Marines, which I'm very excited about. It's a week-long workshop, and I get to interact with the Marines and do what Marines do. I'm also working on the New York Department of Correction in Nassau County to bring a workshop there in the school to prison pipeline workshop there. And throughout the year, I'm just trying to empower youth. And if you have a child, my message to you is tell that child, never allow your success to shock you. Make your success an expectation. You're allowed to celebrate your success, but let your success shock other people. Don't let your success shock you, because that's what your birthright is. You were born to be successful. You were born to use your gifts. So don't let it shock you. Definitely celebrate it, but don't let it shock you. Let other people be shocked by your success, but that's what you were meant to do in the first place. If you're a parent, know your rights, support your child, stay in the conversations. I know educators, law enforcement, they all like to use terms that we may not understand. It's our responsibility to understand what those terms are, and it's okay if you don't. The most important thing is you ask questions and you get the information so you can support your child and other children through the process, and so they can be successful. And to educators out there who may be struggling, this is really a difficult time for educators. There are a lot of educators quitting. The children need you. You're doing God's work. So continue to do God's work. I do that type of support and coaching for educators. If you're in that position, educators are probably the most underpaid position in the United States, the most disrespected position in the United States. But whether you're a scientist, lawyer, whatever you do, it comes from education. It comes from a teacher, and teachers are that important. So I'm here to support. I'm here to recruit Black male teachers. I'm here to support all children, but obviously my focus is our Black and brown children, because they're the ones that are suffering the most.
Wow, brother. You know, I'm moved, right? I'm moved. I hope you guys, you shouldn't be hard to tell. You know my story, you know where I come from, you know what decisions I made in what time and what culture, the consequences and what it looks like. So I want you to understand that this is big for you to understand. And if it's not, then maybe you need to take another look around you, right? To the real world. I know we live in our little pockets. We exist in pockets of our interest, but it's very good, because I've always heard that whether you believe something is true or not, you'll still be impacted by it. right? Whether you believe something is true or not, you'll still, whether you believe it's going to rain or not, that's fine. But if it does rain, you're going to get wet. So be prepared, right? So I want to ask a couple questions. Cello, do you provide support for parents whose children find themselves in situations? Is there somewhere they can reach out to you and contact you and get your counsel, your support, your coaching through the situation?
Yep. Uh, Facebook is called Ending the School to Prison Pipeline, Revolutionary Motivation. You can find me on
Okay.
Facebook. All my social media handles are at Revolutionary. So you can
Very
find me
good.
on Instagram, Twitter.
What about people who have similar interests, people who want to assist their younger generations inside of the school system and might want to partner up with you? You know, is that the same outlook methodology?
Yes, it's the same. If you want to send me direct email, just send it to info at webvolutionarymotivation.com. WEBBOLUTIONARY motivation.com. And
Good.
someone will get back to you and we can connect.
Now I want to tell it. Do you mind if I tell a little bit of a personal story with you, brother? Like a
No,
little bit of the evolutionary process. Is that okay with you?
is my thing. Transparency is beautiful.
Okay, fantastic. So you guys know this is Breakfast with the Brand, right? So we're here to support business owners and brands that make a difference. Brands that make a difference. And I've known Mr. Leonard Cello for about what, 4 or 5 years?
5.
About 5 years, right? So I've known this gentleman personally for about 5 years, right? We've been in different states, different speaking events together. And the brother always had a huge heart. Huge heart. That's one thing that you know, like the sincerity is definitely present when Leonard walks in the room, right? And this is a shameless endorsement because I'm just going to be transparent and honest as well. I saw the struggle. I saw the struggle of him trying to find his niche, find his traction, and find, the intersection between his passion and getting traction. I saw it. And let me tell you guys something. Everybody's passion, purpose, and process is their own. So everyone doesn't need to be interrupted. Everybody doesn't need to be coached. Some people need to be left alone, right? So I just watched, I observed Mr. Cello's process and his going through his discovery process, right? His discovery process to find his lane. And I was doing the same thing at the same time with my business. And it's just a phenomenal experience to see you traveling the world, impacting hundreds of thousands of students, soon to be millions, and helping people and living your best life, because I know that's what you always wanted. I saw it from the very beginning, and it gives my heart and spirit pleasure to see entrepreneurs arrive. Right. So I just wanted to give you that, brother, and to say that to you because I've seen your process. I've seen, when there was highs and lows. I saw quiet moments, and I was always rooting for you. I was always rooting for you to get it right, and I always knew that you would if you stayed the course. And so for those of you who are out there now watching us, wondering how you're going to get it going, your budget might not be right. You might not have supporters. People might not know your name. You've got passion, but no traction, right? You've got hope, but nobody booking you. You're looking, but nobody's booking, right? You're trying, but nobody's buying and nobody's supporting. I want you to understand that you're in a crucial moment right now. And it's okay. What it's called is a discovery process. Be patient, be calm, and you will arrive. Consistency trumps intensity. Consistency trumps intensity every time. So my advice to you is going to be to do the same thing that this brother did, which was stay the course. Don't deviate. Remain faithful to your mission and remain focused on your objective. And those are my last words on it, besides thank you so much for the work that you do. And I know we talked about doing something together within the school systems with the Leadership Elevation Foundation for Children's, helping them to develop a leadership perspective and kind of like an ROTC of sorts for leadership for Black and brown underserved populations. Tell us a little bit before we leave about your program that you're instituting right now, and educators, pay attention. Go right ahead, sir.
Well, I started a program. It's called Youth Champs. It's named after my book, and it's choices, habits, attitudes, mindset, and purpose. And it's a 6-week course, and it's a social emotional thing. I wanted to have a social emotional component. It's so important for our children these days to understand. I have like 4 pillars that I use. It's seen, safe, soothe, and secure. If we can master those 4 things in a social and emotional way, our children are on that path to success. But they have to have a sense of belonging, a sense of ownership in the school that they're in. And they only have that if they're seen, safe, secure, and soothed. And just really quick, oftentimes a lot of us wonder why children get involved in gangs. Is because there's a sense of belonging. It's because there's a sense of ownership. It's because there's a sense of family. And if our schools aren't providing that, well, that's the reason that's happening. So I use the 4S process: seen, safe, secure, and soothe, to help educators build that sense of belonging in their school.
Very good. Very good. And thank you for the work that you're doing. I'm sorry, but while you were talking, one thought came to my mind. What do you say to people who say raising the child is on the parent, not the school?
I'm not going to sound cliche and say, it takes a village, but I am going to sound cliche. It's everybody. I tell educators, they're all our children. Every one of them are all our children. And until we start looking at it that way, then we're still going to have these difficulties. We're still going to be where we were 20 years ago. And the most important thing is look at every child as our child. I look at a child that's hungry at school. Hey, kids know, go to Mr. Webb's office if you need a snack, because they're all my children, regardless of what they look like, where they are, their status as an athlete, their status as a non-athlete. They're all my children. I want to see them all successful. I feel all their pain and their heartaches. And I'm there to support the parents, because a lot of parents really don't know how to be parents. And it's my responsibility to be that comrade, that person to go to. Um, it's We're never going to get out of the mess that we're in if we continue to act like it's not my problem.